I didn't notice it at first, but when I finally did, it was already too late to pretend it wasn't there. It wasn't loud. It didn't rush me. It just stayed. And somehow, that made it worse. It was supposed to be a normal Thursday night. The kind you don't even remember by the weekend. I had stayed a little late at work, nothing unusual. Just finishing up emails, trying to clear my mind before heading home. My routine was predictable. Same desk. Same quiet office after everyone left. Same drive back through dimly lit streets. I actually liked that part of the day. There's something about being alone, with no expectations, no conversations, just your own thoughts. It felt like a reset button. That night, though, I remember feeling slightly off. Not in a dramatic way. Just distracted. I kept rereading the same email 3 times without understanding it. My mind kept drifting somewhere else, though I couldn't tell where. I brushed it off. Told myself I was just tired. Around 10:15 p.m., I finally packed up and left. The parking lot was nearly empty. Only a few cars scattered under flickering lights. Mine was parked near the far end, like always. As I walked toward it, I remember thinking how quiet everything felt. Too quiet. Not scary, just noticeable. I unlocked my car, got in, and sat there for a second before starting the engine. I don't know why. I just paused. Then I drove off. The road home was familiar. I had driven it hundreds of times. A mix of empty streets, a couple of late-night diners, long stretches with barely any traffic. About 10 minutes into the drive, I noticed a car behind me. Again, nothing unusual. It's a road. But something about it made me glance back a second time. It kept a consistent distance. Not too close. Not too far. I turned at the next light. It turned too. I remember thinking, okay, coincidence. It happens. Still, I checked again after another turn. Same car. Same distance. I felt a slight tension in my chest. Not fear exactly, just awareness. My brain started doing that thing it does, trying to rationalize everything. Maybe they live nearby. Maybe they're just heading the same direction. Don't overthink it. So I kept driving. A few minutes later, I decided to test it. There was a turn I didn't usually take, a small residential street that didn't lead directly to my apartment. I slowed down, signaled, and turned. The car followed. That's when something shifted. Not outside, inside. It wasn't panic. It was more like a quiet realization. Okay, this isn't random. My grip on the steering wheel tightened slightly. I didn't speed up. I didn't make any sudden moves. I just kept driving, trying to think clearly. I remember thinking, what do normal people do in this situation? And that thought alone made it feel even more real. I took another turn. Then another. Each time, the car stayed behind me. No honking. No flashing lights. No aggressive behavior. Just there. Following. That silence made it harder to understand what was happening. If someone is aggressive, at least you know what you're dealing with. But this? It felt intentional. Controlled. At that point, I had 2 options in my mind. Go home, or don't. And for some reason, the idea of leading them to my apartment didn't feel right. So I didn't. Instead, I kept driving aimlessly through streets I barely paid attention to before. My thoughts started getting louder. Who is this? Why me? Did I do something? Is this even about me? Then another thought crept in, quieter, but heavier. What if I'm overreacting? That one almost made me doubt everything. After about 15 minutes of this, I noticed a gas station ahead. It was open. Bright lights. A couple of people inside. I made a quick decision and pulled in. The car slowed, and for the first time, didn't follow me in. It kept going. Just like that. No hesitation. No pause. It simply drove past. I sat there for a moment, engine still running. Waiting. Watching. But it didn't come back. After a minute or two, I told myself it was over. Probably just someone heading the same way. Maybe I had let my imagination get ahead of me. That explanation felt comfortable. So I accepted it. I even laughed a little under my breath. You really thought someone was following you? I shook my head, got out of the car, and went inside to grab a drink. Normal again. Or at least, it felt that way. When I got back in my car, I took a deep breath and headed home. The rest of the drive was quiet. No cars behind me this time. No strange turns. Everything looked exactly like it always did. Familiar. Safe. I parked in front of my building and turned off the engine. For a moment, I just sat there again. That same pause from earlier. But this time, it felt different. Heavier. I looked around. Nothing. Just the usual stillness of the night. So I grabbed my bag, stepped out, and walked toward my apartment. As I reached my door, I felt it. That same subtle feeling from earlier. Like something wasn't quite right. I told myself it was just leftover tension from the drive. Unlocked the door. Went inside. Closed it behind me. And that's when it hit me. Not physically. But mentally. That quiet realization, again. Something followed me home. It wasn't a person. That's the part that took me time to understand. Because logically, the car had left. There was no one outside. No footsteps. No sound. But the feeling didn't leave with it. It stayed. Inside me. I couldn't relax. I kept checking the windows. Looking through the blinds. Listening for sounds that weren't there. My apartment, usually my safest space, felt unfamiliar. Not dangerous, just different. Like I was seeing it from a new perspective. And then it clicked. The thing that followed me home wasn't a person. It was a shift. That night changed something in the way I see situations. Before that, I trusted my assumptions. If something seemed normal, I accepted it as normal. If something felt off, I usually dismissed it. I didn't want to overthink. I didn't want to seem paranoid. So I ignored small signals. That night forced me to confront that habit. Because even though nothing happened in the traditional sense, something did happen internally. I felt the difference between ignoring a feeling and listening to it. The truth is, I'll never know if that car was actually following me. Maybe it was. Maybe it wasn't. But that's not the part that stayed with me. What stayed was how quickly I doubted myself. How easily I tried to explain away my own instincts. Just to stay comfortable. Over the next few days, I noticed something interesting. I became more aware. Not fearful, just aware. Of people. Of situations. Of subtle changes in behavior. I started paying attention to things I used to overlook. And more importantly, I started trusting my initial reactions a little more. Not blindly. Not irrationally. Just, respectfully. I also started thinking about how often we do that in everyday life. Not just in situations like mine, But in conversations, relationships, decisions, we feel something is off, but we ignore it. We sense something isn't right, but we explain it away. Because it's easier. Because it keeps things simple. Because facing uncertainty feels uncomfortable. That night showed me something I hadn't fully understood before. Our minds are always picking up signals. Subtle ones. Small inconsistencies. Changes in tone. Behavior. Patterns. But we're trained to override them. To prioritize logic over instinct. Even when both are trying to tell us something. I'm not saying every feeling is accurate. Sometimes we do overthink. Sometimes we misinterpret things. But completely ignoring that internal voice? That has its own consequences. What followed me home that night wasn't danger. It was awareness. And once it's there, you can't just turn it off. Now, whenever I drive at night, I still notice things. Cars behind me. Turns they take. Distances they keep. But I don't jump to conclusions. I just pay attention. And that small shift has changed more than just how I drive. It's changed how I see people. How I make decisions. How I respond to subtle discomfort. Because sometimes, the most important signals in life aren't loud. They don't demand attention. They don't come with clear explanations. They just linger quietly, waiting for you to either notice them or ignore them. That night was supposed to be normal. Nothing dramatic happened. No confrontation. No clear threat. But it left me with something far more lasting than fear. It left me with a question I still think about. How many times in life do we feel something and choose not to listen?